Hello, I'm Annie Haas, and I am going to show you a little knitting tutorial today. You can find my designs on Ravelry at This Bird Knits, all one word. You can also find me on Instagram at this.bird.knits. And today we're going to do an I-cord edge. This is a finishing technique that I'm going to use just to finish up the collar on this sweater design that I'm working on. This sweater is knit with a BFL stock yarn held together with a lace weight mohair yarn. Both of these yarns are from Sugar Plum Circus, and this is her colorway called Butterscotch. So I'm going to take my yarn here. I'm going to have a strand of each held together. So I've got a strand of my mohair and a strand of my sock yarn, and I'm just going to make a really simple slip knot, just like so. And I'm going to put that on my needles, and I'm going to cast on 2 more stitches. So I want a total of 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, on my needle. Now, whenever I'm doing picking up stitches for a collar, I always like to start in the center of the back neck. So I have the right side is facing out, but I want the inside of the sweater, I want the wrong side facing me. So this is the right side, this is the wrong side. So I'm going to just kind of eyeball it. You can count stitches if you want. I usually just eyeball it. So here is the neck opening. We'll go about halfway to the center back, and then I'm going to pick up and knit a stitch, just like so. And make sure I'm using my working yarn and not my tail. I'm going to knit that stitch. So now I have 4 stitches on my needle. Now I'm going to slide these stitches down to the other end of my needle. So a lot of people will use a double pointed needle for this technique. You can totally use that. I just use my interchangeable needles. These are ChiaoGoo's. I use them for everything. So really, as long as you have the capability to slide your stitches from one needle or one end to the other, you're good to go. So now I've got my working yarn over here on the far left stitch, and I've got my 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches here. So this is important when you're doing an I-cord, so that your working yarn is always going to be the farthest from that first stitch that you're knitting. So we're just going to knit the first 2 stitches on the needle, and then I'm going to knit the next 2 stitches together through the back loop. Okay, so that is the final stitch that I initially cast on together with that first stitch that I picked up off my sweater. So now I've got 3 stitches back on my needle. I'm going to go ahead and pick up and knit the next stitch off of my sweater. So once again, I have 4 stitches on my needles, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to slide my work to the other end of the needle. Once again, my working yarn is over here on this far left stitch. Then I'm going to knit the first 2 stitches, knit 1, knit 2, and then I'm going to knit 2 together through the back loop. This is what's attaching my I-cord to the sweater for the collar. So we're going to do that again. We're going to pick up and knit the next stitch on the collar. I've got my 4 stitches. I'm going to slide them down here, and then we're going to knit 2 together through the back loop. So knit 1, knit 2, knit 2 together through the back loop. Pick up and knit the next stitch, 4 stitches, slide that down, knit 2, knit 1, knit 2, knit 2 together through the back loop. So I'm just going to do this a few more times. Basically, that's all you do. You just repeat this over and over again, all the way around your neck opening, or whatever opening you're doing your I-cord finished edge along. You could do it at the cuff of a sleeve, the brim of a hat. So we're going to knit 2 together through the back loop, pick up and knit the next stitch here, slide our work. It doesn't look like much at first, so I'm just going to do a few more so that I can kind of give you an idea of what the finished edge is going to look like. And basically you're going to do this around your whole opening. And then when I get back to the beginning, I usually like to knit into this first loop, and then you've got your little tail here that you can use to kind of like seam it and clean it up, and I can kind of show you how I do that. Honestly, I don't think there's necessarily like a right and a wrong way to do anything with knitting, but that's coming from somebody who's mostly self-taught. So I imagine that if you talk to the right person, they might feel differently. I think at the end of the day, as long as you're happy with the finished product, that's all that matters. And for me, knitting is a really fun, creative outlet, so it feels good to just kind of, I don't know, for lack of a better word, just wing it sometimes. And as long as you like what you've got at the end, you're good to go. So we're picking up, I'll do like maybe 2 more, and then I'll show you guys what this I-cord edge looks like. It's kind of a fun technique too once you get the hang of it. And basically what you're doing is you're creating this little knitted border that kind of wraps and curls around the edge of your work to create a nice, smooth, finished look. And it's a great technique. Again, I like to use this technique. I don't use it very often, but it's a nice option for finishing an edge when you don't want to really add any height to something. So like for this pattern, for example, if I were to, go around and pick up stitches and do like a little ribbing around the collar, I would inevitably, even if I only did a few rows, I would add a little bit of height to that opening. And for this design in particular, I don't want any more height than what I'm at right now. So this is a great tool to have in your toolbox for giving yourself options at the end of a piece for ways to kind of give something a little bit more finished look without really changing the overall appearance of the garment in terms of like the style of the collar, making it look more of like a turtleneck versus just like a boat neck type of appearance. So you can see here I'm creating this nice little edge here that just gives a really nice little finished kind of like there's your 3 stitches. So you've got your 1, 2, 3 rows of knitted stitches all the way around. So it just gives this really nice little finished look. So here's the right side of the garment. It's just going to have this really nice little finished edge all the way around the neckline. So I'm just going to keep doing that all the way around my sweater till I get to the end. And then I'm going to basically just do my I-cord bind off all the way back around to the beginning of this round right here. And then I'm going to I'll break my yarn, tie a knot, and then I'll use this tail and or the tail from that finishing to weave in the end and just kind of clean up this little seam right here. And there's a couple different ways you can do that. It's in the center back of the sweater, so it's really up to you how neat you want to do it. I think there are techniques for like grafting I-cords together. I'm not going to go that far today, just out of personal preference. But this is the technique. It's pretty fun, pretty simple. And if you didn't already know how to do it or you needed a little refresher, hopefully this helped. And you're just gonna do that all the way around. All right, so I hope you enjoyed the tutorial, and I will see you next time. Happy knitting!